Commander Zyx-Nine pressed his clawed fingers against the dying human's throat, feeling the erratic pulse beneath her pale skin. Blood, crimson and alien, seeped through the cracks in her tactical armor. The battlefield around them had fallen silent, save for the crackling flames of destroyed war machines and the distant moans of the wounded. "Remove my mask," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the speakers of her helmet, "and you will finally know who I really am." Zyx-Nine's four eyes narrowed. In all his cycles of commanding the Hegemony's Third Fleet, he had never heard a human speak with such resignation, such finality. Usually they screamed defiance until their last breath, cursing his kind with words that would make even a Thraxian pirate blush. But Captain Maya Torres was different, had always been different. The war between the Galactic Hegemony and the Terran Coalition had raged for 7 brutal years. 7 years of watching these impossible bipeds turn defeat into victory through sheer, bloody-minded stubbornness. 7 years of questioning everything he thought he knew about warfare strategy and the very nature of survival. And now, as smoke rose from the shattered remains of the human fortress on Kepler 422b, Zyx-Nine found himself cradling his greatest enemy in his arms. "Your species fascinates me, Captain Torres," he said, his translator rendering his words into her primitive language. "Even dying, you negotiate." A wet laugh escaped her helmet. "Not negotiating, Commander. Just tired of wearing masks." The irony wasn't lost on him. The Hegemony had been hunting this particular human for 3 years. Captain Maya Torres, the ghost of Proxima, the butcher of Titan Station. She had cost him more ships than any other single human in the war. Her tactical genius had turned what should have been easy victories into Pyrrhic nightmares. And yet here she was, bleeding out in his arms after what should have been her moment of triumph. The battle for Fibrace Delta had been a trap, of course. The humans had known it, and they had walked into it anyway. Because that's what humans did. They took impossible odds and somehow made them work in their favor. Zyx-Nine had watched from his command ship as Torres led her strike team through a gauntlet of plasma fire and pulse cannons. Had watched her soldiers die one by one, their screams echoing across the tactical channels. Had watched her press forward anyway, driven by something his kind had never possessed. Hope. Humans called it hope. Zyx-Nine called it insanity. "The data core," Torres gasped, her hand weakly gesturing toward the smoking fortress. "Did you get it?" Zyx-Nine's mandibles clicked in what humans might recognize as a smile. "Yes, your encryption codes, your fleet positions, your precious supply routes. All of it." "Good," she said, and there was something in her voice that made his skin crawl. "Wait. Good?" His tactical mind, honed by decades of warfare, began processing this anomaly. Captain Maya Torres, architect of humanity's greatest victories, was pleased that he had captured their most sensitive intelligence. "Commander," his lieutenant, Kex-7, approached with his weapon drawn. "The human stronghold has been secured. We found 17 survivors, but they are refusing medical treatment. They just keep saying Protocol 7 over and over. Protocol 7. Zyx-Nine had never heard that designation in any intercepted human communications. His grip on Torres tightened involuntarily. "What is Protocol 7? He demanded. Torres's helmet turned toward him, the reflective visor hiding her expression. "A thing your intelligence analyst missed, Commander. The thing they always miss about humans. Speak plainly. We don't just fight to win," she said, her voice growing weaker. "We fight to teach." The words hit him like a pulse cannon to the chest. Teaching. Humans had been teaching them. Every battle, every engagement, every seemingly desperate last stand had been a lesson. But teaching what? "The data core you captured," Torres continued, "contains everything you wanted to know about human military capabilities. Troop movements, supply lines, weapon specifications, tactical doctrines. Yes, it also contains something else, something we have been feeding into your intelligence networks for months." Zyx-Nine felt his blood temperature drop. "What?" "The locations of every human civilian population in the galaxy." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Zyx-Nine's mind raced through the implications. If the Hegemony's military command believed they now had accurate intelligence on human civilian targets, "You baited us," he breathed. The entire war. You have been baiting us. Torres's hand found his arm, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so close to death. My species has a saying, Commander. If you want to catch a monster, you have to think like one. The trap. It wasn't Firebase Delta. It wasn't even this battle. It was the entire war. The coordinates in that data core, Zyx-Nine said, his voice hollow with realization, lead to empty colonies, ghost towns, evacuated systems. Torres coughed, blood spattering the inside of her helmet. But your fleet commanders won't know that until they arrive. And when they do, they will find something else instead. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant sounds of his troops securing the battlefield. Securing the battlefield, Zyx-Nine's tactical displays were already showing Hegemony fleet movements. Commanders eager to exploit their new intelligence. Gondars eager to exploit their new intelligence windfall. 12 fleets, possibly more. All moving toward what they believed were undefended human civilian targets. What will they find? He asked. Though part of him already knew the answer, Torres's helmet tilted upward, as if she were looking at the stars beyond the planet's toxic atmosphere. The entire Terran First Fleet, the Second Fleet. Hell, probably the third and fourth by now. That's impossible. Our intelligence shows those fleets were destroyed at Regil. Your intelligence shows what we wanted it to show. Zyx-Nine's world tilted. The Battle of Regil had been the Hegemony's greatest victory in the war. 4 human fleets, gone in a single engagement. The footage had been broadcast across every Hegemony world, proof of their species' inevitable victory over the upstart Terrans. We needed you to believe you were winning, Torres explained. Needed you to get cocky, overconfident. Needed you to commit your forces to what you thought would be an easy genocide. The full scope of human deception began to unfold in his mind. Every victory, every tactical success, every piece of intelligence they had gathered had been carefully orchestrated. The humans hadn't been fighting a desperate defensive war. They had been herding the entire Hegemony military into a trap. How many? Zyx-Nine asked. Ships? Fleets? Or lives? All of it. Torres was quiet for a long moment, her breathing becoming more labored. 16 Hegemony fleets are currently en route to what they believe are civilian targets. Instead, they are going to find the largest concentration of human military force in our history. And then we end this war. Permanently. The word hit him like a physical blow. Not victory. Not conquest. Aimed. As in final termination of hostilities, through overwhelming application of force. Your high command will never surrender, Zyx-Nine said. They will fight to the last I know. Torres's voice was growing fainter. We are counting on it. Another realization crashed over him. The humans weren't just planning a military victory. They were planning extermination, complete eradication of Hegemony military capability in a single coordinated engagement. The survivors, he said suddenly. The 17 prisoners. What's their real purpose? Witnesses, Torres replied. Someone has to go back and tell your people what happened. Someone has to explain why their fleets never came home. Kex-7 approached again, his movements nervous. Commander, we are receiving priority transmissions from Fleet Command. Admiral Rax Prime wants a full debrief on the captured intelligence. Zyx-Nine looked down at the dying human in his arms. How long do we have? Before the trap closes? Maybe 6 hours, maybe less. His hand found his again. Your choice, Commander. You can warn them, try to save your fleets. Or you can remove my mask and learn something that might actually matter. The weight of decision pressed down on him like a collapsing star. 16 fleets. Hundreds of thousands of Hegemony lives, his own species' continued existence in the galaxy, against one human's dying request. Why, he asked. Why tell me any of this? Torres turned her helmet toward him again, and for a moment he could see his own reflection in her visor. Because someone should know the truth about what we really are, about what you made us become. Made you become. Your people started this war because you believed humans were weak, primitive, easily conquered. Her voice was barely a whisper now. You were wrong about the conquered part, but you were right about everything else. I don't understand. The mask, Commander. Remove it, and you will. Sibling claws hesitated over the helmet seals. Around them the battlefield continued its grim transformation from war zone to graveyard. His soldiers moved efficiently through the ruins, cataloging weapons and securing prisoners. None of them understood what was really happening here. What had been set in motion, what was about to end. If I warn my fleets, Zyx-Nine said, your plan fails. The war continues. Yes. If I don't, my species faces annihilation. Yes. And if I remove your mask. Torres was quiet for so long he thought she might have died. Then, barely audible, she spoke again. If you remove my mask, Commander, you will understand why none of the other choices matter anymore. His claws moved to the helmet seals. The first seal disengaged with a soft hiss. Commander, Kek-7 called from across the battlefield. Admiral Rax Prime is demanding immediate response. Should I tell him we have the human intelligence package? Zyx-Nine's finger paused over the second seal. One word, and he could still save his fleets. One transmission, and the human trap would fail. Torres' breathing grew shallower. Commander? The second seal disengaged. Tell the Admiral, Zyx-Nine said. His voice hollow, that we have everything we need. The third seal opened. Torres' helmet came free in his hands. And for the first time in 3 years of warfare, Commander Zyx-Nine looked into the face of his greatest enemy. And understood, with crystalline clarity, why the war was already over. Why it had been over from the very beginning. Maya Torres smiled up at him with his own face. Time fractured. Commander Zyx-Nine stared down at the impossible thing cradled in his arms, his own features rendered in human flesh. The same four-eyed configuration, though smaller, more delicate, the same cranial ridges, softened by mammalian skin, the same mandible structure, hidden beneath what humans called lips. But it was the eyes that destroyed him. 4 golden orbs that held intelligence, pain, and something else. Something that looked suspiciously like pity. Surprise, Maya Torres whispered, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Zyx-Nine's mind reeled through 17 different explanations, discarding each as quickly as it formed. Surgical modification, genetic manipulation, some kind of holographic disguise. None of them explained the bone-deep recognition that screamed through every fiber of his being. This was not a human wearing his face. This was family. Impossible, he breathed. Lot of that going around today. Torres, no, this thing that looked like Torres coughed wetly. The real Maya Torres died 6 months ago on Europa Station. Plasma burned to the chest. Very messy. Then who are you? The better question, dear brother, is who are you? Brother. The word hit him like a meteor impact. Zyx-Nine had no siblings. His genetic line had been carefully cultivated by the Hegemony's breeding programs. 1 offspring per genetic template. Maximum military efficiency. Except the Exodus program, he whispered. Her smile widened, showing teeth that were too sharp for a human mouth. Finally catching up. Are we? Only took you 7 years of war to figure it out. The Exodus program. Classified beyond even his security clearance. Something the High Command had buried so deep that even rumors were met with immediate execution, but fragments had leaked through over the decades. Whispers of failed experiments, of genetic material sent beyond hegemony space, of children lost to the void. You are hegemony, he said, the words tasting like poison. Was hegemony, I'm human now, have been for 37 years. She gestured weakly at her broken body. Though the warranty is apparently running out, this changes nothing, Zyx-Nine said. But even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were a lie. Everything had changed. The war, his purpose, his understanding of what they were fighting. Doesn't it? Torres tilted her head. The gesture so familiar it made his stomach clench. Tell me, Commander, why do you think humans fight so well against superior technology? Desperation. Primitive cunning. Wrong. Blood bubbled at her lips. We fight well because we know exactly how you think. Because half of us used to be you. The implications crashed over him in waves. The human tactical genius that had confounded hegemony strategists for years, their uncanny ability to predict fleet movements, their knowledge of hegemony technology and military doctrine. How many, he asked, Exodus subjects? Hard to say. The records were scattered across 17 systems. Maybe 3,000, maybe 5. She paused to cough up more blood. But we bred, dear brother. Humans are very good at breeding. 3,000 to 5,000 original subjects reproducing for nearly 4 decades. Conservative estimates put their descendants in the hundreds of thousands, possibly millions. An entire generation of hybrid children, Zyx-Nine said, his voice hollow. Leading your enemies. Building their weapons. Teaching them how to kill you more efficiently. Torres's laugh turned into a choking sound. Poetic, don't you think? Why? The question tore from his throat. Why turn against your own kind? Our own kind? Her 4 eyes blazed with sudden fury. Our own kind abandoned us in human space as embryos, left us to live or die based on the mercy of aliens. Do you know what it's like growing up as a monster among mammals? Zyk? The use of his shortened name, the nickname only his clutchmates had ever used, sent ice through his veins. The humans took us in, she continued. Fed us, raised us, gave us names and families and something you hegemony bastards never bothered with. Love. Love is weakness. Love is why we are going to exterminate you. The casual way she said it, like discussing the weather, made it infinitely more terrifying than any battle roar. The trap, Zyx-Nine said. The fleet movements? This was all planned by hybrids. Planned, executed, and about to be completed. The human admirals trust us because we have never given them reason not to. We have bled for them, died for them, become them, in every way that matters, except biologically. Even that's changing. Torres reached up and touched his face with trembling fingers. Did you know human genetic material is remarkably adaptable, compatible with most carbon-based life forms? No. My children look fully human. My grandchildren will too. In a few generations there won't be any trace left of our hegemony heritage. Except for the memories we will pass down. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The memories of what you did to us. Zyx-Nine felt something he had never experienced before. Something that took him several moments to identify as shame. The other survivors, he said suddenly. The 17 prisoners. Some are hybrid. Some are pure human. Good luck figuring out which is which. Torres smiled that terrible smile again. We have gotten very good at hiding. Commander Zyx-Nine Tech 7's voice crackled across the battlefield comms system. Priority flash traffic from Admiral Rax Prime. The First Armada is requesting immediate deployment of the captured intelligence data. First Armada, the crown jewel of hegemony military might. 12 dreadnoughts, 47 cruisers, and over 200 support vessels. If they followed the false intelligence to its destination, how many fleets will be waiting for them? Zyx-Nine asked. All of them. Torres's breathing was becoming increasingly labored. Every human warship in the galaxy has been quietly moving into position for the last 6 months. This is it, brother. The final battle. You could still call it off. Send a warning. Could, won't. Her eyes were growing dim. Do you know what the hardest part about being a hybrid is, Zyx? Tell me. Looking in the mirror every day and seeing the face of your enemy. The words cut deeper than any blade. Because Zyx-Nine was beginning to understand that the face he saw in the mirror was not the face of a hegemony commander. It was the face of a monster. The data core, he said. If I destroy it now, prevent the intelligence from reaching fleet command, someone else will put the pieces together. The trap will still close. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Torres gripped his arm with surprising strength. The only difference is whether you die knowing the truth or die believing a lie. What truth? That this war was never about territory or resources or galactic dominance. Her voice was fading fast. It was about coming home. Home? The hybrids aren't trying to save humanity, Zyx. We are trying to save our people. Both sets of our people. She struggled to sit up, failed fell back into his arms. The Hegemony Council that authorized Exodus is still in power. The same monsters who threw away thousands of children to see what would happen. Understanding dawned like a nuclear sunrise. You want regime change. We want justice. For the hybrids who died alone and afraid on alien worlds. For the humans who took us in and paid the price when your fleets came looking for expansion opportunities. Torres' eyes fixed on him, and for the Hegemony citizens who deserve better than rulers who treat children like lab rats. The fleets will be destroyed. Has to happen. But their crews, the soldiers following orders, the young ones who never knew about Exodus. She paused to cough up more blood. There's a reason 17 prisoners were left alive, brother. Witnesses, teachers. Someone has to go back and explain to the Hegemony people why their military suddenly doesn't exist anymore. Someone has to help them build something better from the ashes. Zyx-Nine looked around the battlefield, seeing it with new eyes. The burning wreckage. The dead soldiers on both sides. The careful positioning of everything, designed not just for tactical advantage but for symbolic impact. This wasn't just a battle. It was a message. Commander? Zyx-7 approached at a run, his armor scorched from the fighting. Admiral Rax Prime is threatening to relieve you of command if you don't respond immediately. The entire High Command is monitoring this channel. Torres squeezed his arm one more time. Choose quickly, brother. Warn your fleets and die a loyal Hegemony officer, or let the trap close and maybe, just maybe, help build something worth living for. And if I choose neither, then you are not as smart as I thought you were. Her smile was growing weaker. There's a third option. But you will have to figure it out yourself. Commander. Zyx-7's voice was becoming frantic. They are demanding an immediate response. Zyx-9 stood slowly, still cradling Torres in his arms. Around the battlefield his soldiers were beginning to notice the delay. Some were checking their weapons. Others were glancing nervously at the sky where Hegemony reinforcements would soon arrive to collect their prize. The data core containing the false intelligence sat in a sealed case nearby, guarded by 2 of his best troops. 1 command, and it would be uploaded to Fleet Command. 1 word, and 16 Hegemony fleets would sail into the largest military trap in galactic history. Unless, Maya, he said softly. Yes? The third option. Does it involve me living through the next few hours? Her laugh was barely a whisper now. Living is overrated, brother. The question is whether you die meaning something or die for nothing. Commander Zyx-9. Zyx-7 was shouting now, please respond. Zyx-9 looked down at the dying hybrid in his arms. At the face that was his own face, rendered in enemy flesh. At the golden eyes that held 37 years of pain and purpose, and something that might have been love. Tell Admiral Rax Prime, he said, his voice carrying across the battlefield, that the intelligence package has been compromised. Torres's eyes widened. 6. Tell him. Zyx-Nine continued, raising his voice so every soldier could hear, that the humans knew we were coming. That the data core contains false information designed to lure our fleets into a trap. Sir? Zyx-7's voice cracked. Are you certain? Tell him that Captain Maya Torres was a Hegemony hybrid. That the Exodus program created the enemy we have been fighting all these years. Zyx-Nine's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. And tell him that his nephew, Commander Zyx-Nine, chooses to remember what honor used to mean. The silence that followed was deafening. Torres stared up at him with something like wonder. You magnificent idiot. You just signed all of our death warrants. Probably. The fleets will still move. Different coordinates, but they will still attack human space. Yes. And when they do, they will be walking into a prepared defense instead of a perfect trap. Also, yes. Torres closed her eyes. Thousands will die who might have lived. But millions will live who might have died. The war will continue. The war will end eventually. But maybe it will end with something other than genocide. She was quiet for a long moment. Around them, Zyx-Nine could hear the whispered conversations of his soldiers. The clicks and hisses of Hegemony shock and confusion. Third option, Torres whispered finally. Third option. Think it will work? Zyx-Nine looked up at the alien stars burning overhead. In a few hours, those stars would light the paths of fleets racing toward battle. Hegemony ships and human vessels, carrying soldiers who believed they were fighting for survival, for home, for something worth dying for. Maybe they were right. Maybe they were all right. Ask me in a few years, he said. Assuming we survive that long. Torres laughed one last time. Assuming anything survives that long. Her eyes closed. Her breathing stopped. And Commander Zyx-Nine, nephew to admirals, product of genetic breeding programs, loyal officer of the Galactic Hegemony, held his sister's body and waited for the consequences of choosing hope over duty to come crashing down around him. The consequences arrived faster than expected. Plasma bolts screamed across the battlefield as Keck-7 opened fire, his weapon trained on Zyx-Nine's chest. The shots went wide, deliberate misses that spoke of conflicted loyalty rather than failed marksmanship. "You traitorous spawn," Keck-7's voice cracked with emotion. "Do you know what you have done?" Zyx-Nine gently laid Torres' body on the scorched ground and rose to face his lieutenant. Around them, his soldiers had formed a loose circle, weapons drawn but uncertain. 7 years of following his orders warred with a lifetime of hegemony conditioning. "I know exactly what I have done," Zyx-Nine said calmly. "The question is whether you understand what it means. It means we are all dead." Another soldier, Vex-12, stepped forward with his rifle raised. High Command monitors all battlefield communications. They heard everything, every word about hybrids and false intelligence, and the truth about Exodus. Zyx-Nine finished. "Yes, I imagine that conversation is causing quite a stir in the High Council chambers right about now." His personal communicator abutted in a cascade of priority signals. Admiral Rax Prime, his uncle and commanding officer, demanding immediate clarification. Fleet Command requesting tactical updates. The High Council itself summoning him to account for his words. All of them ignored. Commander Keck-7 lowered his weapon slightly. "Perhaps if we explained that the human used some kind of mind control, psychic manipulation, the Council will execute us all regardless of explanation," Zyx-Nine said. "The moment I revealed Exodus on an open channel, we became loose ends." "Then why?" Vex-12's voice rose to a near shriek. "Why condemn us all for one dead human? Because she wasn't human." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Zyx-Nine gestured toward Torres' still form, her face finally peaceful in death. "Look at her. Really look. See past the skin color and the mammalian features." He knelt beside the body and tilted her head, revealing the subtle cranial ridges beneath her hair. "Count the eye sockets. Notice the bone density, the jaw structure." One by one his soldiers approached. One by one they saw what he had seen. "Hegemony hybrid," Keck-7 whispered. "But that's impossible. The Exodus subjects were all destroyed." "The official reports claim they were destroyed," Zyx-Nine corrected. "Reality, as we are learning today, is somewhat different." "Sir," another soldier, Pex-4, spoke up nervously. "If the humans have been infiltrated by our own people—" "Not infiltrated. Led." Zyx-Nine stood and activated his tactical display, showing fleet positions across the sector. "Every major human victory in this war has been orchestrated by hybrid commanders. The Ghost of Proxima, the Butcher of Titan Station, the Iron Marshal of New Geneva, all of them bearing hegemony genetics. Our own people have been killing us," Vex-12 said, his voice hollow with realization. "Our own people have been trying to save us," Zyx-Nine corrected. "From ourselves." The contradiction hit them like a physical blow. Soldiers trained from birth to see the universe in terms of us versus them, suddenly confronted with the reality that us and them were the same thing. "The trap," Keck-7 said slowly. "The false intelligence. If you warned command, then our fleets will attack different targets. Human colonies that aren't evacuated. Civilian populations with minimal defenses." Zyx-Nine's mandibles clicked grimly. "The hybrids wanted us to commit genocide against empty worlds. I have given command the opportunity to commit genocide against occupied ones. That's better. That's the third option. Not perfect, not clean, but maybe, just maybe, survivable for everyone." An explosion echoed across the battlefield as human reinforcements began their assault on the perimeter. Plasma fire lit the alien sky, and the distinctive whine of human pulse weapons added counterpoint to the Hegemony energy discharges. "They are moving to retake the base," PEX-4 reported. "Estimated strength, 2 battalions. We are outnumbered 5-1. "Good," Zyx-Nine said, checking his sidearm. "We need witnesses on both sides for what comes next." "Sir." Instead of answering, Zyx-Nine activated the general battlefield frequency, broadcasting on all human and Hegemony channels simultaneously. "This is Commander Zyx-Nine of the Hegemony 3rd Fleet. I am speaking to all combatants, human and Hegemony, currently engaged in combat on Kepler 430b. The weapons fire began to slow as soldiers on both sides paused to listen. 37 years ago, the Hegemony High Council authorized a classified program called Exodus. Thousands of Hegemony embryos were scattered across human space as part of a long-term infiltration experiment. Silence fell across the battlefield like a blanket. These children were raised by human families. They became human citizens, human soldiers, human leaders. They also became our greatest enemies. Captain Maya Torres, whose body lies beside me, was one of these hybrid children. Zyx-Nine could see movement in the human lines as soldiers emerged from cover, their weapons lowered but ready. The current military engagement is a trap designed by hybrid command staff to lure Hegemony fleets into a decisive battle. However, I have warned my superiors of this deception. Our fleets will not fall into the prepared ambush. "Commander?" Kex-7 whispered urgently. "What are you doing?" "Ending the war," Zyx-Nine replied. Then continued his broadcast. "Instead, Hegemony forces will likely attack alternate human targets, civilian populations, undefended colonies. This will trigger the very genocide both sides have been maneuvering to prevent." The human soldiers were advancing now, moving in careful formation across the broken ground. Behind them, Zyx-Nine could see the distinctive profile of Colonel Jake Morrison, the human commander he had been fighting for 3 years. Another hybrid, undoubtedly. The facial structure was subtly wrong for a pure human. "I am therefore proposing an alternative," Zyx-Nine continued. "A temporary ceasefire to allow both sides to contact their respective command structures, to share intelligence, to find a solution that doesn't involve the extinction of either species. And if they refuse," Colonel Morrison's voice crackled across the comm frequency, electronically distorted but recognizably non-human, "then we die here together as an example of what cooperation might have looked like." Morrison stepped into view, his rifle lowered but not holstered. Like Torres, his features bore the subtle markers of Hegemony heritage. Unlike Torres, he was very much alive and radiating controlled fury. "You killed her," Morrison said simply. "She was already dying when I reached her. You could have saved her. Hegemony medical technology. She didn't want to be saved. She wanted to complete her mission." Morrison's 4 eyes, cleverly disguised behind human-style contact lenses, blazed with grief and rage. "Her mission was ending this war." "No," Zyx-Nine said quietly. "Her mission was teaching me that ending it was possible." The two commanders faced each other across the battlefield, separated by 20 meters of blood-soaked ground and 7 years of mutual slaughter. "The ceasefire," Morrison said finally. "What are your terms?" "Complete intelligence sharing, human fleet positions, Hegemony fleet positions, hybrid identities and locations. Full disclosure of military capabilities on both sides. That's suicide for both of us." "Yes. But it might be survival for everyone else." Morrison considered this, his hybrid features unreadable. "My commanders will never agree. The human government doesn't negotiate with genocidal invaders. And my commanders will execute me for treason before agreeing to any terms with hybrid infiltrators." They stared at each other across the killing ground, two soldiers who had spent years trying to murder each other, suddenly confronted with the possibility of something else entirely. "Colonel Morrison," Zyx-Nine said formally, "I am placing myself and my surviving troops under your protection as prisoners of war." "Commander Zyx-Nine," Morrison replied with equal formality, "I am accepting your surrender and guarantee safe passage for you and your soldiers." "Sir," Kex-7 protested, "we can't surrender to humans." "We are not surrendering to humans," Zyx-Nine said. "We are surrendering to family." The word hit the battlefield like a shockwave. Human and Hegemony soldiers alike turned to stare at their commanders, trying to process the implications. "All right," Morrison said after a long pause. "What happens now?" "Now we contact our respective fleets and tell them the war is over." "Just like that." "Just like that," Morrison laughed, the sound bitter and exhausted. "You know they will kill us both, probably. The fleets will still fight. Maybe not today, maybe not here, but somewhere. Eventually, yes. Then what's the point?" Zyx-Nine looked down at Torres's body, then up at the alien stars burning overhead. In a few hours, those stars would light the paths of warships racing toward battles that might determine the survival of two species. Or they might light something else entirely. The point, Colonel Morrison, is that for the first time in 7 years, someone on each side knows the truth about what we are really fighting. And that changes things. Ask me in a few years. Assuming any of us live that long. Morrison activated his communicator and began speaking rapidly in human military code. Across the battlefield, Zyx-Nine's own comm unit erupted with angry demands from Fleet Command. Both commanders ignored their superiors and began the delicate process of explaining to two civilizations why their war had been built on lies, conducted by enemies who were family, and might possibly end with something other than mutual annihilation. It would take years to untangle the web of deception, hybrid infiltration, and competing genocides that had defined the conflict. It would take decades to rebuild trust between species that had spent so long trying to destroy each other. It would take generations to create something new from the ashes of what they had been. But as the sun set over the battlefield on Kepler 432, two hybrid soldiers who had spent 7 years trying to kill each other sat beside the body of a third hybrid who had died to make peace possible, and began the long, bloody, impossible work of ending a war. Maya Torres would have been proud. Assuming, of course, that she was really dead. But that Zyx-Nine reflected as he watched Morrison's medical team examine her still form with suspiciously advanced equipment. Was a question for another day. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. 3 hours later, the real work proved to be considerably more explosive than anticipated. "Incoming?" Vex-12 screamed as the first orbital bombardment struck the northern perimeter of Firebase Delta. Zyx-Nine threw himself flat against the reinforced bunker wall as the ground shook beneath him. Beside him, Colonel Morrison was shouting orders in rapid-fire human military cant, coordinating defensive positions with the same efficiency he had once used to kill Hegemony soldiers. "So much for the ceasefire," Morrison said grimly, plasma burn scoring his improvised cover. Admiral Rax Prime was never known for his patience. Zyx-Nine replied, checking the charge on his sidearm. "Or his willingness to negotiate with traitors." Another barrage hammered the compound, this time from human orbital assets. The message was clear from both sides: no surrender, no negotiation, no mercy for commanders who had chosen cooperation over loyalty. "Looks like we are officially enemies of both our peoples," Morrison observed with dark humor. "Congratulations, Colonel. We have achieved true neutrality." Morrison's laugh was cut short as a section of the bunker wall exploded inward, showering them with debris. Through the smoking gaps, Zyx-Nine could see the distinctive energy signatures of Hegemony drop pods screaming down from orbit. "Purification squad," he identified with professional detachment. "Elite troops tasked with eliminating security breaches." How elite? The kind that shoot first and don't bother with questions later. "Wonderful." Morrison activated his comm unit. "All human units. This is Morrison. We are now officially at war with everyone. Weapons free, defend the compound and try not to kill the Hegemony defectors unless they shoot you first. All Hegemony personnel," Zyx-Nine added on his own frequency. "This is Zyx-Nine. We are about to be executed by our own military. I suggest we cooperate with the humans if we want to see tomorrow." The first Hegemony assault team breached the outer perimeter 60 seconds later, their black armor gleaming with the insignia of the Purification Corps. Behind them came human Marines in full combat gear, advancing with the grim determination of soldiers who had been betrayed by their own officers. "Well," Morrison said, chambering a round in his pulse rifle, "this is awkward." The firefight that followed would later be remembered as the Battle of the Broken Ceasefire, though historians would debate for decades whether it qualified as a battle, a massacre, or simply the galaxy's most complicated suicide pact. Zyx-Nine found himself fighting alongside humans for the first time in his military career, coordinating defensive positions with soldiers he had been trying to kill that morning. The irony was not lost on him, though he was too busy staying alive to appreciate it fully. "Morrison!" he called across the compound as a Hegemony plasma cannon vaporized their cover. "Your medical team. Are they still with Torres's body?" "Bunker 7. Why?" "Because if she's really dead, we need to destroy the body before the purification core gets to it. And if she's not dead, then we need to get her out of here before they kill her again." Morrison's 4 eyes widened with understanding. "Medical team, this is Morrison. Evac the patient in Bunker 7. Priority Alpha." "Sir, the patient is deceased," came the reply over crackling comm channels. "The patient is classified. Move her now." Zyx-Nine watched Morrison coordinate the evacuation with the same tactical brilliance that had made him such a dangerous opponent. Within minutes, Torres's body was being moved through the compound's underground tunnel system, protected by a mixed squad of human marines and Hegemony defectors. "You know," Morrison said as he provided covering fire for the evacuation team, "when I woke up this morning, I didn't expect to be smuggling corpses with my worst enemy. Technically, your worst enemy is now trying to kill both of us." Zyx-Nine pointed out, ducking as another plasma blast scorched the air above his head. "Fair point." The orbital bombardment intensified, both human and Hegemony fleets apparently competing to see who could destroy the compound more thoroughly. Through the tactical displays, Zyx-Nine could track the approaching ground forces, 3 full Hegemony battalions and at least 2 human armored divisions, all converging on their position. "We are not going to win this," Morrison said matter-of-factly. "No. But we might survive it." "How?" Zyx-Nine smiled grimly and activated the emergency beacon on Torres's captured intelligence device. "By giving them something more important to worry about." The device began broadcasting on all military frequencies, human and Hegemony alike, transmitting the complete intelligence package that Torres had died to deliver. Fleet positions, hybrid identities, military capabilities, civilian population centers, everything. Both species' command structures would receive complete intelligence about their enemies within the hour. "You magnificent bastard," Morrison breathed. "You just made this war impossible to fight." "Impossible to fight the way we have been fighting it," Zyx-Nine corrected. "Complete intelligence sharing means no more surprise attacks, no more ambushes, no more traps, just straight-up slugging matches between equally informed opponents. Which means massive casualties on both sides until someone decides negotiation is preferable to extinction." The bombardment stopped abruptly as both fleets realized what was happening. In the sudden silence, Zyx-Nine could hear the confused chatter of approaching ground forces as their commanders tried to process the intelligence windfall. "Movement in the tunnels," Morrison reported. "The medical team has reached the extraction point. Patient status." Morrison listened to his earpiece for a moment, then turned to Zyx-Nine with an expression of complete bewilderment. "They say she's asking for you." "She's what?" "Asking for you. As in, talking. As in, not dead." Zyx-Nine stared at Morrison for a long moment. "That's medically impossible." "Lot of that going around today." They made their way through the compound's tunnel system, dodging debris and the occasional plasma blast from the surface battle. The underground medical bunker had been converted into an impromptu field hospital, with human medics working frantically over several wounded soldiers. And in the center of it all, propped up on a makeshift stretcher, Maya Torres was very much alive and looking extremely annoyed. "About time you got here," she said weakly. "I was starting to think you'd let me die for dramatic effect." "You were dead," Zyx-Nine said flatly. "No pulse, no breathing, no neural activity. Hibernation trance, Hegemony survival technique. I thought you might remember it from basic training. Hibernation trance requires at least 6 hours of preparation and meditation, or severe blood loss and emotional trauma." Torres struggled to sit up, wincing at the movement. "Amazing what adrenaline and desperation can accomplish." Morrison was staring at her with something approaching awe. You faked your own death, in the middle of a battlefield, while actually dying. I improvised. Sue me. Why, Zyx-Nine asked. What was the point? Torres looked at him with those impossible golden eyes, so much like his own. Because someone had to die for you to understand what the war was really about. And someone had to live to help you figure out what comes next. And what comes next? Before she could answer, the bunker shook as something massive landed on the surface above them. Through the reinforced ceiling, they could hear the distinctive whine of Hegemony war mechs powering up their weapon systems. What comes next, Torres said grimly, is we find out whether peace is worth fighting for. The first mech blast punched through the bunker ceiling, sending chunks of ferrocrete crashing down around them. In the strobing light of energy weapons and the acrid smoke of burning electronics, the three hybrid commanders looked at each other and reached the same inevitable conclusion. The war wasn't over. It was just getting started. But for the first time in 7 years they would be fighting it together. And that, Torres reflected as she checked the charge on her sidearm, made all the difference in the galaxy. Come on then, she said, struggling to her feet with Morrison's help. Let's go teach 2 civilizations how to make peace. At gunpoint? Zyx-Nine asked. If necessary. That's the most human thing I have ever heard. Thank you. I didn't mean it as a compliment. I know. They made their way toward the surface. 3 hybrids carrying the hopes of 2 species and the weight of a galaxy's future on their shoulders. Outside, the real war was waiting for them. The one that would determine whether the stars belonged to monsters or to something better.